Hey folks, have you ever opened up to your family about something really personal, only to find yourself cringing about it later? It's a common experience, right? As we navigate life, especially as we get a bit wiser, we start to understand that sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. There are just certain aspects of our lives that are better kept under wraps, even from those closest to us. But what exactly are those things? What are the boundaries we should set to protect our relationships and our own peace of mind, particularly within our families? Well, you've come to the right place. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 key things you should absolutely never disclose to your family, especially once you've reached the milestone of 65. And trust me on this, these insights could profoundly impact how your family perceives you and the overall dynamic of your family relationships. Now, before we jump into these crucial tips, if you're resonating with this kind of content and you're looking for more valuable advice to help you live your absolute best life after 65, make sure to give that like button a good tap and hit subscribe. Also, I'm genuinely interested to hear from you. What's one thing that you believe should always remain private within a family? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, and let's start a meaningful conversation. Your perspectives are incredibly valuable, and by sharing our experiences, we can all support each other in living more enriched and fulfilling lives. As we get on in years, the wisdom we've picked up often comes hand in hand with a few regrets. Once you hit your 70s, looking back at the roads you've traveled, the choices you've made, and the ones you skipped, well, it's just part of life. But, spilling all those personal regrets to your family, it can have some unexpected ripples, and sometimes it changes how they see you, and not always for the better, if you catch my drift. Take Bob, for instance, a 75-year-old retiree. He put in a good career, 30 years at the local factory, and he's proud of that work ethic, blue collar through and through. But he's been telling his kids lately about how he always wished he'd chased his real dream, opening a little bait and tackle shop down by the lake. Now, over time, this little confession started to shift things with his grown kids. They started carrying around this quiet guilt about their own careers, wondering if they were on the right path themselves. What started as just good old Bob reflecting on life's what-ifs turned into a conversation that planted seeds of doubt in his kids' minds. You see, Bob's regret was personal as heck, but sharing it had this domino effect. His kids, who always looked up to him for providing for them all those years, started seeing him in a different light, focusing on what he didn't do, instead of everything he did achieve. Instead of feeling inspired by their dad's story of hard work and dedication, they started feeling like maybe he hadn't lived his life to the fullest, the American dream, and all that. And that's a pretty common reaction, truth be told. When we lay out our regrets like that, it can make folks around us second-guess their own choices. The weight of hearing your dad or mom regret their job, past relationships, or those big life decisions, it can kind of mess with how family members see their own paths. For some, separating those feelings from their own lives. Forget about it. If they sense their parent is hung up on regret, they might just start wondering if they're doomed to look back with regret themselves one day. But here's the honest-to-goodness truth. Airing these feelings too much can really change how your loved ones act around you. They might start looking at you less like a rock, someone they admire, and more like someone who's fragile, carrying the weight of the past. Instead of seeing you as a source of strength, they might start treating you with pity, and that can put a real damper on things and create distance in the family. Look, reflecting on life is important, absolutely. But we gotta realize the impact of oversharing our regrets with those closest to us. It can bring a cloud of sadness and what could have beens, instead of appreciating what we have right now, today. Instead of pulling family closer, constantly dwelling on regrets can make conversations heavy, like wading through mud, and leave everyone feeling emotionally wiped out. Now, as we get a little longer in the tooth, money matters? They get even more personal, and let's be honest, sometimes trickier to handle. For some folks, retirement rolls around, and with it, a whole new ballgame financially. Could be fixed incomes, medical bills piling up, or just getting used to kicking back after a lifetime of work instead of bringing home a paycheck. But here's the thing. Talking too much about your money struggles with family, whether you're feeling swamped by bills or sweating about those savings, well, it can put some real unexpected pressure on your loved ones. Take Linda's story, for example. She's a 68-year-old widow down in Ohio. After her husband, bless his soul, passed on, Linda found herself in a bit of a bind, trying to keep up her lifestyle on just her fixed income. She'd often share her worries with her kids, about making ends meet each month, fretting that her nest egg wouldn't stretch through her retirement years. At first, her kids were real sweet about it, chipping in here and there with a little cash to help out. But as time went on, all that talk about money started to shift things, Linda's daughter, Emily, who had her own family to look after and bills to pay, started feeling this growing weight of responsibility for her mom's finances. This sense of duty, it put a real crimp in her own budget, and this unspoken pressure started causing some friction with her mom. Emily started feeling a bit resentful, truth be told, feeling like she was suddenly on the hook for her mom's financial stability, even though she genuinely wanted to help out. On the flip side, Linda's son, Daniel, who had always done pretty darn well in his career, started getting frustrated. He loved his mom to bits, but all the money talk? It made him uneasy. He started worrying that maybe his mom was hinting for more help than he could really swing, He also got concerned that all this financial worry sharing would put a strain on things with his sister, Emily, since she was feeling the pinch too, and they both felt obligated to step up. In both cases, Linda's money troubles, without her even meaning to, put her kids in a spot where they felt like they had to support her in ways they just hadn't planned for. What started as just an honest chat about making ends meet turned into this whole emotional and financial tangle. Over time, the family vibe kind of changed, from being all about mutual respect and love to one where generosity and affection got all tangled up with money obligations. Now, talking finances with family isn't a bad thing in itself, but you gotta tread carefully, Being too open about money can stir up feelings of guilt or entitlement, maybe even resentment. When one family member feels like they gotta carry the financial load for another, it can just mess up the family dynamics, plain and simple. It's all about finding that sweet spot, that balance between being upfront and honest, and still keeping those boundaries strong to protect everyone's well-being and those precious family relationships. Instead of constantly bringing up the money struggles, maybe try focusing on solutions, Sharing some financial wisdom you've picked up over the years, or asking for help in specific ways can be way more helpful than just constantly airing your worries. It's okay to be open, sure, but remember, loading up your loved ones with all those money concerns, it can build up emotional walls you never meant to put there. It's just human nature. Families are going to have their little squabbles and get on each other's nerves sometimes. But as we get a bit seasoned, shooting off our mouths about other family members, especially when you're fired up about something, it can really stick with folks. Sometimes, just a little offhand comment or a fleeting thought about someone in the family can mess with those relationships we hold so dear, Let's take a gander at George, a 74-year-old retiree kicking back in Arizona. George has got 3 kids, and he loves them all something fierce, but he's always been a bit critical, let's say, of his youngest, his son, Timmy. Now, in George's book, Timmy's made some career choices that just didn't sit right with him, and he's made sure his wife, Martha, hears all about his disappointments. Bless her heart. George wasn't trying to be mean-spirited, mind you, but his opinions about Timmy's career path, they started kind of leaking out into how he talked to other family members, just like water seeping under a door. One evening, after Sunday dinner, George just casually drops to his daughter, Susan, how he thinks Timmy's totally wasted his potential by going into graphic design instead of doing something solid like accounting or engineering. Susan, who's always been the family peacemaker, she really took her dad's words to heart. She didn't necessarily agree with her dad's harsh take on Timmy, but hearing it just made her feel icky, you know? Now here's where it gets sticky. Susan, bless her, not wanting to rock the boat with her dad, starts kinda echoing those same thoughts to Timmy, even if it was just in passing, little digs here and there. Well, this caused some real unspoken tension between Susan and Timmy. Timmy felt stung, like his own family, especially his sister, wasn't in his corner about his career choice. What started as just a dad's opinion about his son's job turned into this subtle but real shift in how the whole family saw Timmy. Even though George didn't mean any harm, his words had this ripple effect, like tossing a pebble in a pond, and it started cracking up relationships in the family. Timmy started feeling like his whole career was under a microscope, and Susan? She began carrying around this silent weight, feeling like she had to keep the family from blowing up. The whole family vibe started to change, and this once close-knit, loving family started feeling distant, like they were drifting apart. Truth is, we all got our opinions about the choices folks make, but sometimes, it's just better to keep those thoughts zipped up, especially when it's about family. When we start voicing criticism, even if it's just a little jab, it can stir up trouble and hurt feelings for no good reason. What might seem like just a casual remark to us can really sting the person we're talking about, especially when it's someone we love. So, next time you're about to share your 2 cents about a family member, just ask yourself, is this going to actually help anyone, or am I just letting out my own disappointment? If it's more the latter, best to keep it under your hat, Nobody wants to feel like they're constantly being judged, especially not by their own family. By holding back those judgments, you create a more peaceful space where everyone feels valued for who they are, not for whether they measure up to someone else's yardstick. Bottom line, family relationships are about love and sticking together, not about pointing out everyone's supposed flaws. Holding back on the criticism, it can really glue a family together and head off a whole heap of drama. After all, it's that support and unconditional love that keeps families strong, not nitpicking their choices or lifestyles, right? As we get up there in age, our health, it just kinda naturally takes center stage in our lives. Health stuff pops up more, and suddenly, doctor's appointments and treatments, they can start running the whole darn show, day in and day out. Now, chatting about your health when you gotta? Totally normal, no shame in that. But, going on and on about every little ache and pain with the family, it can kinda change how they see you, and not in a way you might hope for. Take Ruth, for instance, a sweet 69-year-old lady out in California. Ruth's been dealing with chronic back pain for a few years now, and it's really become a big part of her life, bless her heart. She's always telling her 2 daughters, who live nearby, about how much she hurts and how uncomfortable she is. Ruth's health chats? They've become a regular thing whenever she talks to her girls. Sometimes they're practically the only thing they talk about on the phone or at family get-togethers. At first, Ruth's daughters, Emma and Katie, were real sympathetic, offering to run errands, drive her to appointments, the whole 9 yards. They did everything they could to make her comfortable and ease her pain. But, as time went on, all the constant talk about Ruth's bad back, it started to shift their view of her, What started as just daughters being caring and helpful slowly turned into this whole atmosphere of worry and, concern. They started seeing their mom not as that strong, independent woman she always was, but more like someone who was fragile and always needing a hand. Ruth even noticed this change in the air herself. At family dinners, instead of just enjoying being with her daughters and grandkids, she found herself constantly being asked about her pain levels. "Mom, how's your back today?" This constant spotlight on her health, it made Ruth feel like she wasn't seen as, a vibrant person with a lifetime of stories and wisdom, but just as someone whose health problems needed constant babysitting. This subtle shift in how Ruth was seen started making her feel less valued, like she wasn't bringing anything to the table anymore except her ailments. While her daughters loved her something fierce and wanted to help, they too started feeling kind of weighed down by always focusing on her health issues. What Ruth hadn't quite put her finger on was that, yeah, talking about health stuff is important, but it's just as important to keep those chats balanced out with all the other things that make us who we are, you know? Constantly going on about every little ailment, doctor visit, and what you can't do physically. It can make loved ones see you as delicate, not as the strong person you still are inside. And it's not just about how we feel, it's about how it makes them feel too, you see? To dodge this whole shift in how folks see her, Ruth could have mixed in some other stuff with the health talk, you know? Stories about her life, her hobbies, things she was interested in. Instead of every conversation being about pain and doctors, she could have shared updates about her rose garden, a good book she was reading, or maybe plans to catch up with her old college pals. That way, Ruth would still get the support and care she needs, but her family? They'd still see her as the whole, dynamic person she is, not just someone defined by her aches and pains. Bottom line is, health challenges are a real part of getting older, no two ways about it. And there's zero shame in needing help or talking about it when you need to. But it's just as important to keep the conversation balanced. Remember, we're all way more than just our physical limitations. By doing that, you keep your health from becoming the only thing folks see when they look at you, letting your family keep seeing you as the full, vibrant person you are, not just someone with a list of ailments. You know, as we get older, all those question marks about life, they can really start to weigh on your mind. No kidding. Fears about what's coming down the pike, your health, keeping the lights on, even just feeling lonely, they can get louder, especially when you see the world changing all around you. It's totally normal to have those worries pop up, but, you know, unloading all of them on your family all the time, it can create this kind of heavy emotional load, and that ain't healthy for anyone in the family, you know? Let's look at Robert, a solid 75-year-old fella down in Florida. Robert's wife, Nancy, she passed away a few years back, and ever since then, he's been wrestling with this fear of just getting old alone, you know? He's always sharing these worries with his two grown kids, Jake and Rachel, going on about how anxious he is about not having enough support as he gets older. He frets about his health going downhill, and maybe just ending up all alone as his buddies and folks his age start slowing down too. At first, Jake and Rachel, they were real troopers. They called him all the time, made sure he was comfy, even offered to lend a hand with anything he needed, bless their hearts. But, as time went on, Robert's constant talk about his fears and worries, it started to change the family vibe, you know? His kids, who used to look forward to chatting with their dad, started feeling kind of swamped by all the downer talk about getting old and being lonely. Every conversation seemed to circle right back to Robert's anxieties, and it started feeling more like they were just there to prop him up emotionally, instead of just hanging out and enjoying each other's company, you know? Jake, especially, started feeling this weight of obligation every time he picked up the phone to call. He wanted to reassure his dad, offer him comfort, all that good son stuff. But the load of his dad's never-ending fears started messing with his own peace of mind. He loved Robert to pieces, but always focusing on the gloom and doom. It made every call feel like this heavy duty, not just a chance to connect and have a good time together. Same deal with Rachel, who lives out of state. She started getting stressed out every time she had to call her dad. She loved him, no doubt, but the emotional baggage of his fears started to put a real wedge in their relationship. She didn't want to just brush off his worries, but all the negativity started draining her dry emotionally, leaving her feeling helpless and just plain unsure how to handle her dad's growing anxieties. What Robert just wasn't seeing was that his fears, as understandable as they were starting to hog the spotlight in his time with his kids. By sharing his anxieties so much, He was kinda unintentionally dumping all this emotional responsibility on them, instead of letting them just enjoy their time together in a more upbeat, lighthearted way. Now, it's key to speak your mind and lean on loved ones for support, absolutely. But you also gotta realize the impact of laying on the fears and worries too thick. Constantly bringing up all the what-ifs about the future, it can leave your family feeling emotionally tapped out. And over time, it can build up this cycle of, just feeling down, instead of feeling supported and loved. Instead of just dwelling on the fears all the time, Robert could have made an effort to mix in some sunshine with the rain, sharing happy memories of times with Nancy, talking about his hobbies or what he's been reading, or even just shooting the breeze about some old family adventures. That would let his kids see him as more than just someone who needs constant hand-holding. By doing that, Robert wouldn't just lighten the load on his kids' hearts, but he'd also let himself actually enjoy the time he does have with them, in a way that lifts everyone up. Bottom line, feeling scared as we age, it's just part of the deal, especially with all the unknowns coming our way. But it's key to find that happy medium, between saying what's on your mind and just living life to the fullest right now. By sharing your fears a little less often and focusing more on the good stuff in life, you can make sure those family bonds stay strong, and your family keeps seeing you as that vibrant, strong person who's still embracing life, bumps and all. Wrapping up, bringing it all home, the lessons we've chewed over today, they ain't just about dodging certain topics with family. They're really about building and keeping those family ties strong and healthy, in our own lives. Whether you're in your 60s, 70s, or even way beyond, we all gotta figure out how to handle what we share with our loved ones. It's key to get that some thoughts and feelings, they're just better kept to ourselves, not cause we're trying to be sneaky or anything, but to keep the peace and look out for everyone's feelings, yours and theirs. By using a little good old discretion, we can dodge a whole bunch of unnecessary drama and really strengthen those heart-to-heart connections with our families. If you're finding yourself maybe oversharing a bit too much or getting stuck in a loop of regrets and worries, try to steer those conversations towards stuff that brings a little sunshine and good vibes, Remember, your family? They value you being around, your wisdom, your love, not just hearing about all the heavy stuff you're carrying. Focus on what still matters, what you can share to build a brighter, happier tomorrow together. All right, folks, as we're coming to the end of our chat today, I really hope you found these thoughts helpful and given you something to chew on. The things we've talked about, from keeping some regrets, money stuff, and personal opinions under wraps, to finding that balance with sharing our fears, it's all about keeping those family relationships strong as steel, the ones we cherish most, right? The real takeaway for today is this, plain and simple. Sharing is important, no doubt, but knowing when to zip it, that's just as vital. Being open and honest builds trust and closeness, sure, but it's also key to know when to hold back a bit, especially when it comes to stuff that might accidentally weigh down your loved ones or push them away, Remember, it ain't about hiding who you are. It's about being smart about when to keep the peace and protect your own heart and the hearts of those around you. Relationships? They grow strong on respect, understanding, and sometimes just a little bit of silence. If you got something out of this video today, please don't forget to give that like button a good tap and subscribe to the channel, will ya? And I'm really keen to hear your thoughts in the comments. What's one thing you're going to start doing in your own life to keep your peace and build up those rock-solid family bonds? Thanks a bunch for watching, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Take good care of yourselves now. And remember, a little wisdom and a little discretion, they go together like peas and carrots when it comes to living happy and peaceful with the folks we love.